Bandai Namco lately has been killing it with some of these game releases. And they've been doing a pretty good job. Now, I'm not saying any of these games are perfect, but I definitely have been enjoying the last couple of releases. Gundam Breaker 4, which specifically helped make this channel, and I know I still gotta finish my initial thoughts video, and that keeps getting pushed back, but I'm going to make sure to have that video finally done and completed this year. Then you have the new Digimon game, and if you don't know, I have been a fan of Digimon for a long time now. I haven't really kept up with the series as much, but with the games, I definitely have paid attention to them and I actually kept up with them. Actually, I played most of the Digimon games, and the only reason why I don't play the newest one is because I don't own a PS5. But I have heard really good things about this game, and it's looking like Digimon, for the first time, has a real chance to be a big player, at least a bigger player than they have been when it comes to gaming. And as somebody who has watched the original anime series, who owns all the games from the PS2 era, who owns some of the reading material, and I still need to play the GU series, which I have for the PS4, but I want to watch the anime first because that's a prequel, so I want to watch that before I actually play that game. And real quick, a quick correction, I have not played all the PS2 games in this series because the GU series started on the PS2. I thought it started on the PS3. That's my fault. That was a quick correction. And with all those clues, and if you ain't figured it out by now, the series I'm talking about is Dot Hack. And they finally, just recently, announced a new game. And actually, part of the reason why I decided to redo this video, because I had to make a correction, and I found out that Bandai had little to no involvement in this game besides owning the IP. So actually, this is fully a CyberConnect game, which I didn't know when I first recorded this video. Now, with me technically being a Dot Hack fan, and the reason why I say technically is because I haven't kept up with Dot Hack, I want to say, in over a decade now. Yeah, I think it has to be just over a decade, at least just over a decade, since I looked up anything on Dot Hack. But even though I absolutely do need a refresher course, there are things that I do still remember from that series, and I thought I'll go ahead and use this video to tell you what I hope to see in the upcoming game, or even what I hope happens to the franchise going forward. So the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to this game is it's been a long time since Dot Hack has came out, and a lot of things have changed. So I'm very curious with how the internet is today, if they're going to add I'm very curious. So with that being said, I really hope that this game falls into one of three categories. Either I want this to be a total remake, a retelling of the game, or it's a sequel of the entire series. So I hope this game falls into one of the three categories. The one thing I don't want it to be is a direct prequel. I really hope, or if it is a direct prequel, that means they're going to be either remaking or retelling the original 4 games. And that's what I hope that happens if they're going to make a prequel. But I really hope this is not a direct prequel, because the manga with the same name was, which technically this has a little bit of a different spelling. So this is probably definitely a different story. I just hope that it's not a prequel, at least not to the original game, because that would, to me, that wouldn't make sense. Now, the one thing I will say is that I've always wanted the original Dot Hack to be remade or revised, either or, because I really did love those 4 games. Definitely had their issues, their age is definitely showing, but I definitely love those 4 games, so I always wanted those games to either be remade or even do an entire revise of it. That would be pretty cool. And maybe update it for modern times, because Die Hack is a really good series. One thing I want to mention that I forgot to talk about at the beginning is everything that I'm bringing up is coming based on memory, and it's only talking about the earlier parts of Die Hack, at least the series that I watched, read, and the very first set of games. Because I think I've only played one other Die Hack besides the original one, but I can't remember what that one was. I didn't own that game, and I never played GU. Yes, I do own it, and yes, I've owned it for years, but I never played it because I wanted to watch the anime first, and I never got around to it. But I just want to make sure to mention that so you kind of know where I'm coming from, so there's no confusion. Because some of the things I bring up may have gotten fixed in later series or installments. I'm saying all that because, again, it's been over 10 years since I looked into that series. So some of the things I may bring up, I might be misremembering it, and it may be coming from the anime series or the manga and not necessarily the game. So I also want to mention that too. But mainly the information is going to come from the game because that's where I remember the most. Now, this next thing, I used to have a bigger issue with it back in the day than I do now, because it's been so many years since we got a Die Hack game that this isn't a real concern for me anymore, but it's the kite variants. That's the one thing back then that drove me nuts, because everything I played, everything I picked up, anything I read always had a kite variant, and I always wanted them to kind of, I don't know, focus on other characters, and then I always want to see kite all the time, or I should say a kite variant. Again, not such a big deal now, but back then, oh, that used to drive me nuts, because I remember I would play the game, then I would pick up a manga, and I'd be like, wait a minute, is this kite, is this the same character? No, it's a variant. And that drove me nuts. Now, to be fair, there was content back then that didn't have kite or a kite variant in there. Look at Die Hack Sign, for example. But I just wish that... No, actually, I wish they would have gave the kite design a break. That's really what it was. Like I said, I don't hate Kite as a character. I'm actually a big fan of Kite. Even the Kite variants weren't really bad characters. I just got tired at that point of the reusing of the Kite style and design. At least with the material that I picked up and I checked out from that series. Now, I didn't think that there would be such a long break of the franchise that would have solved that problem, but now it's not such a big deal because of that break. What I do remember were the side characters. I remember that a lot. I remember Balrog, or not Balrog, it's a Balmont. But I remember him, I liked his design. I remember Black Rose. I remember Orca, which I think, okay, I don't want to say nothing. Again, you gotta play the game. There's definitely a lot of characters I remember in that game, but the one thing I remember the most is I wish we had a lot more time and a lot more development with a lot of the side characters, because some of those side characters I really liked them, but I felt like I didn't really get enough out of those characters. I felt like you could have done a lot more with them. So, especially some of those, what was it? Were they secret characters? Again, I don't remember exactly, but there were some characters that, like, they were pretty cool, but they didn't really get much screen time. And that's probably the one thing I didn't like. Like, I wish there was more development with a lot of the side characters, a lot more, or I felt like there should have been a lot more for some of these characters. And that's one thing I hope that they improve in this game, is that they actually give a lot more development of all the side characters that they include. Oh yeah, please don't do the 4-game split. Basically, don't do that multi-release crap. Just release one big, giant, good game. I don't know, I'm trying to think. There's not too much more I remember. I do remember getting the weapons from the characters from the anime and how strong those were. That was pretty cool. So I wouldn't mind them doing something like that. That would be actually pretty cool. That would also be cool too, is maybe, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that would be cool, is past characters coming back in this game, especially if it's going to be a sequel, which I don't know if it is or not, or if it's going to be a retelling. But yeah, that would be pretty cool if like some of the past characters from other games come into this one. I also want to say this for anybody who wants to get into Dot Hack, because this just popped into my mind. But if you want to start playing Dot Hack or get into the franchise, my suggestion is, if you can't, start with these 4 games. I know they're kind of hard to find at this point, but if you could find them, I recommend you go ahead and start them. Now, I know Dot Hack Sign did come out first, but I want to be honest with you, Dot Hack Sign is a rough watch. I'm not saying Dot Hack Sign is a bad series, but it is a rough watch. Honestly, I watched Dot Hack Sign once. I probably will never watch it again. I actually recommend watch a retrospective. There are some things that you get out that game that it's good to know, but for the most part, I would probably skip Dot Hack Sign or watch a retrospective to get that story. Because I don't care what anybody says, it is slow and it is a rough watch. But again, it's not bad. It's just, it is rough. I'm not gonna lie, it is rough. It was even hard for me to get through it. I don't know. There's not much else I can say because I'm doing this mainly from memory. So I'm bringing up as much as I can remember. But the one that I want to say is, I definitely enjoyed that game back in the day. It was definitely fun. Definitely dated. Definitely needs a remake. It really does. But it still is a really good series that I recommend. And I mean as a whole, and I am glad that it's finally coming back. Now, like I said before, I still need to play GU, so either right when this video releases or after it releases, I'm going to start watching the GU anime so I can watch the prequel. Then I'm going to go ahead and start playing that game as soon as I finish that anime series. One more thing I want to mention, because it just popped in my head, because I know some people like to say Dot Hack is more of a darker series, but no, it's more of, I like to call it more serious. You could call it dark, but I don't think it's that dark. At least for the most part, because don't get it twisted, there are some more lighter stories and content that is in Dot Hack, but for the most part, from most of the stuff I read, it's a pretty serious series, if you want something more serious to check out. I just wanted to make sure to mention that because it popped in my head. But with that being said, I'm glad Dot Hack is back, and honestly, I'm looking forward to finding out more information on this game. Now, I was going to stop this video here, but there's another series that's returning that I also want to bring up. And I was going to make it a standalone video, but there's not too much I have to say about that series, and it doesn't warrant its own video. So I thought I'll go ahead and just put it here with the Dot Hack series. And that is Dead or Alive. I remember playing Dead or Alive for the first time. I don't know if it was on the PlayStation, but I know it was the first game that came out for the PlayStation. And I think it was my cousin that brought it over. And I've been playing it ever since until it took the move to Xbox. Now, I don't know what happened to it, but I used to own the original Dead or Alive for the PS2. I think, what was it called? I think it was called Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore. That's the one I actually had. Now, I don't know what happened to that game. I don't know if I sold it, if I gave it away. But yeah, I used to play Dead or Alive all the time until, like I said earlier, it moved to the Xbox. Once it moved to the Xbox, I basically stopped playing it. Until Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. That's when I actually came back to the franchise, when it came out for the PS4. And I used to have so much fun playing that game. My favorite part was kicking people out of the stages or kicking them off of buildings. That was the coolest part. But yes, I played Dead or Alive as much as I could. Now I think 6, that's when I stopped again. I forgot why. No, you know what? I think the reason why I stopped, if I remember right, it was because they started getting into greedy practices. Once they started doing that greedy crap, that's when Dead or Alive lost me. It was that, and there were some other things that it did that I remember why I stopped playing Dead or Alive 6. I forgot what it was, but I know one of the big reasons was the greed. And actually, I need to take back what I said earlier. I actually did play every Dead or Alive. I just didn't own them. I played Dead or Alive 3, I played Dead or Alive 4. I even played both beach volleyballs. I even went as far as to watch that trash movie. Oh, that movie was so bad. Although, I will give them that they got the casting for Baz and Tina correct. I do like their casting. Yes, they got the 2 wrestling Americans right. I will admit that. That was actually pretty good casting. But everybody else, that was just a bad movie overall. But if I ever get my hands on a PS5, that's definitely my target. Is I do want to get Dead or Alive 6 last round because I'm hoping that they made improvements. As long as they don't price it ridiculous, if I ever get PS5, I will be picking that one up. And Dead or Alive 7. And this is the only thing I really want from this game. It's only 3 things. Know who you are, know what your fan base is, and do not be greedy. As long as these 3 things don't happen, then Dead or Alive shouldn't have any issues, and that is a game I will be looking forward to in the future. Dead or Alive 7, yes, I will be looking forward to that. Now that I know it's in development, so I'm ready to get my hands back on a new Dead or Alive game.